what if the most explosive thing Justin Bieber said this year ... wasn't said at all? No press conference, no lyrics, no captions. Just one quiet Instagram story, and suddenly fans were convinced he just called out Benny Blanco. Without naming names, without saying a single word. But when you know the backstory, the betrayal, the emotional fallout, the complicated love triangle between Justin, Benny, and Selena Gomez, it all hits different. This wasn't just some harmless meme. It was a digital mic drop. A soft whisper that echoed like a scream. Because what happens when your former best friend starts dating the love of your life? Not just any ex, but the ex. The one you built your teenage years around. The one whose name became your legacy. And now that friend is engaged to her. Publicly, loudly, and you're expected to just move on, smile, and scroll past? For Justin, that repost wasn't random. It felt like something cracked beneath the surface. Fans went into detective mode, digging up every receipt, every lyric, every comment he's made in the last few months. And it all points to one thing: this wasn't about jokes or TikTok trends. This was personal. So what really happened between Justin Bieber and Benny Blanco? What led to this cold silence, this hidden heartbreak, this passive-aggressive war playing out through social media? Was it shade? Was it pain? Or maybe ... it was both. Stick around, because once you know the history, the repost, and the ripple effect, you'll never look at that Instagram story the same way again. It all started with a single post. Not a press release, not a statement. Just an Instagram story, a reposted TikTok that at first glance seemed harmless. Just a guy joking around, doing an over-the-top impression of how Benny Blanco talks in the studio. Nothing too deep, right? Just lighthearted content. But the moment Justin shared it, the internet paused. Fans didn't laugh. They analyzed. They dissected the timing, the tone, the intent. Because this wasn't any random meme, this was Benny Blanco. The Vest, same guy who helped Justin produce some of his most emotional, vulnerable songs. The same guy who once sat across from him in dimly lit studios while he bled heartbreak into a microphone. And now? He's dating the woman those songs were about. That TikTok, exaggerated voice and all, mocked Benny's creative process. It joked about how his hits sound like they were made in 13 seconds using an Xbox mic, while Kesha barely had time to blink in the studio. Funny to some, but to Justin, it felt like the perfect vehicle to send a message without saying a word. It said, "I see you. And I'm not pretending this is okay." Because let's not forget, Justin and Benny weren't casual acquaintances. They were tight, collaborators, creative brothers, trusted friends during some of Justin's darkest emotional chapters, especially during the on and off chaos with Selena Gomez. And that's what makes this sting deeper. Benny didn't just fade into the background of Justin's life. He reappeared in the foreground right beside Selena, romantically, publicly, and now permanently. Because Benny Blanco didn't just date Justin's most talked about ex. He proposed to her. And she said yes. Once upon a time, Benny Blanco wasn't just a name in Justin's contact list. He was the guy, the studio partner, the late-night sounding board, the friend who knew every shade of the Selena chapter, the messy, raw, behind-the-scenes parts fans could only guess at. Benny had a front-row seat to Justin's heartbreak. He heard the stories no one else did. He saw the tears before the world heard the songs, and that made what came next feel less like coincidence and more like a knife, because Benny didn't just move on. He moved into Justin's past, and he made himself comfortable. He started dating Selena Gomez, not secretly, not quietly. It was public, bold, paparazzi ready, and it caught Justin completely off guard. There was no heads up, no respectful conversation, just headlines. Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco officially dating. No call, no text. Just shock. Insiders said Justin was blindsided, cut off without warning. This wasn't just a breakup from a friendship. It was betrayal without a trigger, no fallout, no fight. Just a silent replacement. And to pour salt in that wound, Benny didn't just keep dating her, he proposed. And she said yes. That engagement didn't just sting. It detonated. Because this wasn't just Justin's ex. This was the girl who shaped his fame, his heartbreak, and a huge part of his identity. And now she belonged to someone he used. To trust. Fans saw it unfold in real time, Justin unfollowing Benny. No captions, no explanation, just a quiet severing. And from there, things shifted. Justin's energy changed. He pulled back. His posts grew less frequent, more emotional. A cryptic lyric here, a nostalgic memory there, no callouts. No clapbacks, just tension. Heavy, unspoken tension. The kind you don't need to write a diss track for because every silence is a diss. Every repost is a wound bleeding out in public pixels. Through all the chaos, one name has been whispered more than it's been shouted. Hailey Bieber. The woman Justin chose. His wife. His partner, the mother of his child. And yet, as the past rushed back like a tide, he never asked. For she's the one who's had to keep the ship steady. While the world analyzed his every post, dug up old lyrics, and stirred up Selena comparisons, Hailey stayed quiet, elegant, composed. But even grace has its limits. Insiders say she's been doing everything she can to hold the center, to be Justin's peace while the internet replays his pain like a trailer on repeat. But it hasn't been easy. Because let's be real, how do you compete with a ghost? Not just any ghost, but the ghost. The woman Justin's fans have mythologized. The one tied to his most emotional music. The one who somehow never really left the conversation, even after vows were exchanged, even after a baby arrived. And now the man she loves is hurting. Not loudly, not publicly, but enough that the silence speaks volumes. His energy's been different, his joy more measured, his presence more fleeting. Hailey sees it, she feels it. The shift, the tension, the unspoken ache of watching someone you love quietly mourn a friendship that turned into betrayal and an ex that turned into someone else's forever. And still she holds it down. She shows up, she smiles. But behind that calm exterior, there's a storm she's never named. And maybe never will, because that's what makes this all so complicated. This isn't just about fame, or music, or petty online jabs. This is about real emotion, real wounds. Real people trying to move forward while the world keeps pulling them backward. And Hailey, she's walking that tightrope with the entire internet watching, waiting for her to flinch. So now we ask the question everyone's been too afraid to say out loud. What if this isn't just a post? What if it's a funeral? Not for a person, but for a version of Justin Bieber the world has known for over a decade. The version who once wrote entire albums for Selena Gomez. The version who trusted Blanco like a brother. The version who, no matter how much he moved on, always had pieces of his past pulling him back. Because sometimes silence isn't passive, it's a message, a final chapter. A quiet scream that says, I'm done. That TikTok repost? That wasn't shade, that was grief. And pain, and a kind of emotional honesty you can't caption with clarity. Justin didn't lash out, he didn't drop a song, he didn't do an interview. He just hit repost. But that simple act said everything. It said, I saw what you did. I haven't forgotten. And no, I'm not okay. And maybe that's what makes this moment so powerful. It's not a scandal. It's not clickbait. It's real, raw, messy. Familiar, because who hasn't looked at an old friend and thought, you broke something we can't fix? Who hasn't felt the quiet ache of realizing someone you trusted is now building a life with the one person who once shattered yours? Justin's not spiraling. He's not breaking down. He's just changing, evolving, letting go. Piece by painful. Piece, and in that process, fans are watching a man who's always been visible suddenly become emotionally transparent. Not through press releases, but through pauses. Not through confrontation, but through distance. The kind that hurts more than words ever could. And as all of this unfolds, it's hard not to feel the shift. The world isn't just watching a love triangle, it's watching a transformation. A letting go of old bonds. A mourning of friendships that won't return. A quiet acknowledgement that sometimes closure doesn't come wrapped in conversations. It comes in the form of a single savage story reposted without context. And that was the point. Let's get real, in Hollywood, silence is rare. When people are hurt, they tweet. When they're angry, they post. When they want attention, they go live. But Justin? He did the opposite. He withdrew, no loud accusations. No dramatic interviews. Just a slow retreat into himself, a few quiet posts. The occasional unfollow. And now this a single story repost that somehow roared louder than any breakup ballad. Because when someone goes quiet like that, it's not peace, it's preservation. It's emotional self-defense, and fans noticed. The energy shift. The absence. The way his once vibrant online presence started to feel. Muted, as if Justin was editing himself in real time. Like he was trying not to break in front of millions of people who already thought they knew him. Because when you've been in the spotlight for as long as he has, sometimes even heartbreak becomes performance. But this time it didn't. This wasn't about generating buzz. This was a personal boundary being drawn in plain sight. And the world, instead of respecting it, began poking at it, replaying every lyric, decoding every move, speculating like pain was a game. But the truth is, Justin's silence wasn't cryptic. It was strategic. He didn't need to expose Benny. He just had to stop protecting him. That repost wasn't petty. It was a quiet resignation. A signal that he was done pretending nothing. Happened. And for fans who followed him since the beginning, it felt like a goodbye not to a person, but to a chapter. To an era, to a version of Justin that always kept the door half open to the past. Maybe this was the moment he closed it. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with release. And isn't that the most painful part of healing? Not the screaming, not the fighting, but the quiet decision to stop showing up, to stop explaining yourself, to accept that some people you once loved, once trusted, now belong to a version of you that no longer exists. And for Justin, maybe that version died the moment Benny got down on one knee. So no, this isn't just about a TikTok or an Instagram repost. This is about identity, legacy, memory, and the uncomfortable truth that even billion-stream artists still wrestle with things we all feel. Betrayal, silence, and the ache of letting go when you never got closure to begin with. So now we're here, at the part where we stop watching and start reflecting. Because this isn't just Justin Bieber's story, it's not just celebrity gossip, it's a mirror. A reminder that pain doesn't care about fame. That even the most untouchable people in the world can be blindsided by betrayal. That no amount of money, success, or followers can shield you from the sting of someone you once loved. Choosing someone else, and maybe that's why this hit so hard, because every viewer, every fan decoding this has had their own Benny, their own Selena, their own moment of realizing the people who once held you together are now part of what tears you apart. And they don't even look back. Justin's post wasn't just a post. It was a line in the sand. It was him saying, I see you. I'm not fighting you, but I'm not following you anymore online or in life. It was the kind of quiet heartbreak that doesn't trend on Twitter, but lingers in your chest for years. And if you've ever been in that space, you know, the hardest part isn't the anger. It's the acceptance. So here's the real question. What would you do if your best friend got engaged to your ex? Would you forgive them? Would you pretend it doesn't hurt? Would you hit unfollow? Or would you repost something that says everything without saying a word? And here's where it gets even messier. Because maybe Justin isn't bitter. Maybe he's just done. Maybe he's not asking for Selena back. Maybe he's not mad at Benny. Maybe he's just grieving the version of himself that used to trust too easily, love too recklessly, and forgive too quickly. And maybe, just maybe, that one Instagram story was his way of closing a door. Not slamming it, quiet, clean. Final. So we'll ask you, not as a viewer, but as a human being, do you think Justin threw shade, or did he reveal a scar? Is this just Hollywood drama, or something deeper about trust, timing, and truth? And would you have done the same? Drop your thoughts below. Be honest, be raw. Because in a world full of loud betrayals and silent breakups, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing and let the story tell itself. One Instagram story, one emotional ripple in a past that finally let go. So maybe it was never about drama. Maybe it was never about revenge. Maybe it was always about the moment you realize the past doesn't knock anymore. It just leaves quietly, painfully, without closure. And you don't chase it. You don't explain. You just breathe, hit repost, and walk forward with everything unspoken still burning in your chest. Because sometimes healing doesn't look like moving on. Sometimes it looks like letting go in silence and hoping the people who broke you hear it anyway. Let's get real, in Hollywood, silence is rare. When people are hurt, they tweet. When they're angry, they post. When they want attention, they go live. But Justin? he did the opposite. He withdrew, no loud accusations, no dramatic interviews, just a slow retreat into himself, a few quiet posts, the occasional unfollow. And now a single story repost that somehow roared louder than any breakup ballad. Because when someone goes quiet like that, it's not peace, it's preservation. It's emotional self-defense, and fans noticed. The energy shift, the absence, the way his once vibrant online presence started to feel. Muted, as if Justin was editing himself in real time. Like he was trying not to break in front of millions of people who already thought they knew him. Because when you've been in the spotlight for as long as he has, sometimes even heartbreak becomes performance. But this time it didn't. This wasn't about generating buzz. This was a personal boundary being drawn